You're listening to Turn the Page, a bookish podcast about all things fantasy, YA, LGBT and romance. Each month we'll be reviewing new books, sharing our thoughts on the latest book news and events, and hosting our monthly book club. And now over to our hosts, Kaylee and Sophie. Hello, thank you for joining us for the March episode of the Turn the Page podcast. I'm here as always with Sophie. Hi Sophie.
Hello.
Today our episode is about audiobooks. Audiobooks are amazing, and during our last podcast meeting, Sophie and I had a chat about how audiobooks aren't really mentioned enough and promoted enough. Narrators put so much work into bringing characters and stories to life, and we often forget to mention them. So today we're going to be talking all about our favourite audiobooks and narrators and what we love so much about audiobooks. But first, I think we should talk a little bit about what we've been reading lately. Sophie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I haven't really read that much, to be honest, just with it being a busy month.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I haven't read anywhere near as much as I usually do.
No, I feel like I did really well the month before, and I read quite a lot.
Yeah, see, I feel like I've had a bad year for books, to be fair. Like, I feel like everything's sort of been letting me down.
Yeah.
I've only had a couple of books that have been really good, and I feel like a lot of them have been really pants.
Yeah.
So, like, I just haven't been enjoying them enough. So, yeah, and I have been struggling a little bit with the time, just this past month as well. So, yeah, I haven't read much either.
Yeah. I finished Cemetery Boys.
Yes.
I'm not sure if we talked about that. I don't know if I'd finished that on the last podcast or not.
I'm not sure whether you had.
I know we discussed it briefly. No, I hadn't finished it, had I?
No, you hadn't finished it, but we did obviously talk about it because it was our book of the month, wasn't it, last month?
So I finished that, and that was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It was really good. And do you know what, with that, the more that I think back on it, like I've had time for it to sit, because it was about a month ago when I finished that, the more I think about it, I feel like the better it was, if that makes sense. I almost feel like I want to change my review and give it more stars, because it's just...
you were a bit...
At first, when I first finished it, I was like, oh, it was really good, but it wasn't, like, amazing. But the longer it's been, I just keep remembering bits from it and just how it made me feel, and I'm just thinking, like, you know, I might have not been as fair as maybe...
Yeah.
I just feel differently about it now. Julian's still my favourite character. He's just so sweet.
I like them all. I quite like Maritza as well.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, Yadriel was amazing.
Yeah.
And his is a fantastic main character. You know, you just empathise with him so much. But, I don't know, Julian was just, he's kind of stole my heart. He was just a sweetheart. Really was.
I really enjoyed it. I loved it, actually.
Yeah.
I read our book of the month.
Okay, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but yeah.
Yep. And then I've just started The Hazelwood.
Okay.
But I'm really...
Who's that by again? Is that Melissa...
Albert.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've read that, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember
literally
it.
like a couple of pages in. I'm really not far at all.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
What about you?
Okay, so I've read a couple. I spoke last time about The Charmed Wife by Olga Grisham, which I was reading. Mm-hmm. And it was an arc, I got an e-arc from NetGalley. And I said that I was persevering, but it was a little bit frustrating. Well, I ended up getting to 95% of the way through and then giving up because it just aggravated me. I know. And again, I'm not saying that the book's not good. It it baffled me. It was so confusing. Really, really confusing. I just couldn't... So basically, the timeline isn't linear, and it kind of jumps all over the place. Mm-hmm. So I just felt completely lost. Didn't know what was real and what wasn't real.
Yeah.
But not in a, that's exciting and interesting way, in a way where I just hadn't got a clue what was happening. Yeah, and it just took a turn that I hadn't expected, because I knew it was an adult fairy tale retelling from after Cinderella and the prince get married. Mm-hmm. But I hadn't expected it to have so much dark content in there. It was quite, you know, it covers depression, suicide, adultery, and all this, and it was quite heavy and not at all what I expected, and nothing like what I'd normally read. So I think for me, it just didn't suit my tastes at all. I mean, it's funny because there was almost a side story intertwined about the palace mice, and how at the beginning, you know, Gus from the movie, and then there's a girl as well. How there's these two mice, and they are Cinderella's mice, and then they keep having children, and when they die, the children take up their mantle almost and pretend to be the originals because Cinderella's so out of it she doesn't even tell the difference. But it's quite cute because there's this story of these mice and all the different adventures they have. Like there's one mouse that goes off and starts a rebellion and ends up falling in love with another girl mouse, and then one ends up becoming like a prophet. And like, so the actual mouse story was more interesting for me than the actual main story. And I would have happily just read the mouse story, which tells you a lot about my reading choices. But yeah. So overall, that one just didn't sit well for me. And then another one that I think I might have mentioned last month, which I'd started, was Paris by Starlight by Robert Dinsdale, which I got in a book box. And I'm about halfway through it, and I've been reading it for months. Yeah. Like, I haven't stopped reading it, but it's taking me forever.
Yeah.
It's such a slow-paced book, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's very, very slow.
I think sometimes you have to be in the mood for obviously if you want fast-paced and you want to...
Exactly, and I am more of a fast-paced, medium-paced kind of person. It's, we've talked about it before, it's one of the reasons I love Storygraph, because you can literally put in what pace of book you want and they will recommend you a fast-paced book or a medium-paced book or a slow-paced, whatever. But this one is extremely slow, but the world building is beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, it is mainly plot-driven, not character-driven. And the characters are interesting, and the culture's very, very interesting. I think that's my favourite thing about it. And there is magic. There is a lot of magic. But I still feel like I'm just waiting to find out where on earth the story's going.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm about halfway through and I still just don't know, and it's taken a very long time. But I am still enjoying it. I just feel like it's going to be one of those where I'm reading it for the rest of the year and I'll eventually finish it at some point.
Sometimes that's okay, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
nice. One where I'm definitely in it for the long haul. I don't want to not read it, but at the same time, I know it's not going to be finished anytime soon because it is taking me forever. And it's not a particularly big book, it's just the pacing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the fascinating things about books is, you can have a gigantic book. It could be 500 pages, 600 pages, but if the pace is fast, you could read it in a week.
Yeah.
But then you've got a book like this one, which I think is only 300 odd pages maybe. And literally I've been reading it for months, and it's just one of those strange things.
Yeah.
But yeah. Trying to think what else. Oh, I've read one other apart from our book of the month, and it was brilliant. It was so good. Like, honestly,
I've heard you talk about
it was so good. Yeah, it was really good. It's Malice by Heather Walter, and it's not out yet. It's out in April. I think the 13th or something like that. And I was really lucky to get an art copy from Del Rey UK, who are the publishers. And it's a dark retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but from the villain's perspective. So when I first heard of it, I thought, it's going to be like Maleficent, the movie, which I love. But it's not. It's basically, if you think about Maleficent cursing Aurora, you'd think it was sort of like Maleficent's descendant.
Yeah.
But Aurora is still around. Right, so Aurora's a teenager. Mm-hmm. No, lies. She's 20.
Right.
And so's the other character, who is like the villain of the story. And it's basically the villain's story. But it's so unexpectedly good. I can't stop raving. I finished it and I put it down and I said to my partner, I was just like, oh my God, that was amazing. Because it just took me by surprise.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like I need to say, like, when you come to expect, like, happily ever after and this and that from certain fantasy books, this didn't do that. It ripped the happily ever after in half, threw it out the window and set it on fire, and it was brilliant for that fact. Like, it was so well done. Because for the first, I had a few assumptions as well as thinking, it'll be happy ever after because it's a standalone, because it's not a series, or at least I don't believe it is.
Yeah.
The other assumption I made was, it's YA, it's young adult. But it's not. It's like new adult or adult.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's also queer, so it's a gay retelling. And it's just brilliant. Everything about it's fantastic. The way that they use the magic, the world building, the characters are so good. And what I love about it is the main character, yes, she's the villain, but also she's not this stereotypically beautiful, graceful person. She's flawed inside and, outside to other people's opinions.
Yeah.
She's not stereotypically pretty. She's got green, scaly skin, and you can see her veins, which are green because she's got green blood. She's outcast by everyone. She's treated like rubbish. She lives in a basement because nobody cares for her enough. She's treated really badly until, she meets Aurora and different things happen. But it just, like I said, it really took me by surprise, and I just can't stop ranting about it. It was so, so good, because I'd heard loads of hype about it, and I thought, oh, this is going to be one of those books where everybody says it's really, really good, and it turns out that it's not.
Yeah.
And it just surprised me by how much I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a 5-star read. It was fantastic, and I would really encourage everybody to read it. It was just, I can't stop saying it was so good, it just really was. Yeah.
Aww.
It was brilliant. But yeah, so everybody listening, read Malice by Heather Walter. It's out in April.
Well, you definitely sold me on it.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I've heard you talking about it.
Yeah, and if you love things like Holly Black's The Folk of the Air series and Sarah J. Maas, so the Fae.
Yeah.
So this is all about Fae.
Mm-hmm.
Badass. And it's really cool. Not that Sarah J. Maas is Fae and Holly Black's Fae aren't badass, but, still badass Fae, and it's really cool. So yeah, I'm going to stop ranting about that now, because I think there's only so many times I can say cool in 5 minutes. But yeah, so let's move on. What were we talking about next? So yeah, we're going to talk about audiobooks, which is our theme of the month. Oh, and one thing I did want to say, the reviews for the books that we've mentioned aren't on the website yet, but you can check those out in the next week or so on myendlessshelf.weebly.com, or just Google My Endless Shelf. So yeah, I want to talk about, first of all, there's a big controversy surrounding audiobooks, which really gets on my nerves and really angers me, which is where a lot of people say, do audiobooks count as reading? Well, I'm here to answer your question and to put it to rest. Yes, they do. That's it. That's the answer. They do count as reading. If you believe otherwise, you're being a bit ignorant. I think audiobooks make reading accessible for many more people. I also think that audiobooks are more than reading in a way. You can immerse yourself in a story with audiobooks sometimes in a way that you cannot through reading alone, if you have the right narrator.
Yes.
Which is why we'll be talking about narrators shortly, because they are fantastic. But yeah, so I just wanted to address that, because I see it so many times.
I've heard it quite
daily
a lot.
or weekly on Twitter, you get questions. Do audiobooks count as reading? Do you think audiobooks count as reading? Of course they do.
Yeah.
I know people who would never have read anything without audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
I adore them. And, there are so many people who just couldn't read, couldn't access books before audiobooks were made available.
Or even people that, if you haven't got the time to read.
Exactly,
that's where a lot of my listens have come in.
Yeah.
Where my mind's been clear, but my hands have been preoccupied, do you know what I mean? And I haven't been able to sit there and physically read the book.
Yeah, I do the same. If I'm too tired to hold a book at night, I will happily put on an audiobook just so that I don't have to hold this great big hardback and smack myself in the face with it, which is what I do 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, me too.
It's a great escape. They're fantastic resources for people.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy them, you can get them for free from the libraries. I don't understand why it's a question, to be honest. Why they count as reading? I don't understand why it's even a question. I just, my answer is yes. Yes, they do.
Mine too.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which is another big issue, so just before we get into sort of our favourites and things like that, is something called Audible Gate. Now, we mentioned this a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
So this is where Audible are charging authors for book returns. So Audible basically advertise free returns and an easy exchange service as a way to get people to subscribe. I won't lie, I've used it because when it was pitched to me when I signed up to Audible, the first thing I saw was, you can return any book for any reason and get a new one.
Yeah, it's like it's put out like it's a library service.
Yeah, like it's a lending service or a subscription service like music, where you can just listen to whatever you want. And that's how it was pitched, and that's what I believed it to be for quite a while, until I found out that many authors were being charged for those returns. Now, I think, as readers, we kind of need to stop returning books after, say, 10%.
Yeah.
Because on if you sign up to Kindle Unlimited, which is Amazon's subscription ebook service, you can read about 10%, and then if you don't like it, you can send it back for a refund. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. If you bought a book from a shop, you'd never take it back if you didn't like it.
No.
Would you? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I suppose some people would. I don't know if you're even able to.
Well, I didn't even think you'd be allowed to. I've bought many a book that I didn't enjoy, and I've never once considered taking them back. I've just sold them on or donated them or whatever.
Shop.
Yeah. So but I'm not obviously not saying that it's a reader issue, because, a lot of people don't know about it, and like I said, it's the way Amazon and Audible advertise it. It doesn't make sense to advertise it as a free exchange and return service when they're clawing back those returns from authors who didn't agree to it in the first place. I've read things where authors didn't even know that this was a practice, and then just all of a sudden, I think there was a glitch in the system a few months back where authors for the first time saw that they were being charged for returns, that it was being deducted from their royalties, and that had never before been explained. So it's a massive controversy at the moment, and if you do want to find out more about it, you can just go to Twitter and search for #Audible Gate. But there's lots going on there, and there's petitions and things that you can sign. The Alliance of Independent Authors are doing petitions to try and get Audible to change their practices so that narrators and writers can get, the fair money that they deserve, because it is affecting both. It's not just authors, it is narrators as well.
Yeah.
The authors might make money from selling their books elsewhere, but the narrators aren't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If they lose a book, if they get a return and get charged for it, that's it. They've got no other income stream for those books. Okay, so we've covered Audible Gate, and we've covered the whole do audiobooks count as reading nonsense. So let's move on to what we do love, or maybe what even we don't like about audiobooks. They want this to be a fair comparison. So is there anything, let's start with that, is there anything you don't like about audiobooks? There is for me. Do you want me to go first? I'm talking way too much.
No, you're okay. I think... do you mean from a perspective point of view?
Yeah, just from your personal opinion, is there anything that you don't like?
I'm not much for when it's wrote in third person, like when the narrator's talking to you in third person.
I am exactly the same. I actually find it impossible almost to get into books that are written in third person.
Yeah.
I love first person narration.
Yeah.
Because it feels like the character is in your head talking to you. And I think that's the best thing about audiobooks.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like when it's third person, you're being talked at rather than being talked to.
Yes, and you can lose yourself.
Yeah.
And when I've tried to listen to third person narration, so many times I've thought, I don't remember what's going on. I've zoned out.
There are times where I've zoned out quite a lot.
Because you're not engaged.
No.
If it's one person talking to you instead of someone, like you said, there is a difference between someone talking to you and someone talking at you. It is very different, and I do agree that is how it feels with third person narration. So yeah, I completely agree there. I think another thing maybe is, it's the right narrator.
Definitely.
You can get a narrator that doesn't match the character or the book.
I mean, there's countless times where I've done it. I've started a book with Audible.
Yeah.
And then I've got a few chapters in, and I'm thinking, I'm really not liking this.
Yeah. But I'm not saying it's the narrator, because you could then listen to something else by the same narrator and it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
But some narrators and some characters just don't mesh well. And obviously, there's also you do sometimes lose, it's probably more with the third person narration, is you kind of lose that voice inside your head.
Mm-hmm.
So that voice, when we are reading like epic fantasy, where we do literally disappear and we create these worlds out of our own imagination, and we create the characters the way we want them to and things like that. We imagine them in certain ways. I think you do sometimes kind of lose that.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I do love audiobooks.
Yeah.
But like you said, I don't even know if I've successfully read any that aren't in first person. No, I mean that aren't in first person. Yeah, I've listened to quite a few, but I don't think there's any really that aren't in first person. Not off the top of my head anyway. Because I do just genuinely enjoy it when when it is someone talking to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, the one that we talked about before, Every Heart a Doorway, the one that I said I really wasn't much for.
I don't remember that.
We discussed it, I think it was last podcast or the one before that.
I've slept since then. You'll have to refresh my memory.
Yeah, it's about the kids who, like Alice in Wonderland, the people, like the kids that find the doorways and fall down the rabbit holes.
Yeah, with you now.
I'm pretty sure that was third person, and I couldn't get on with that either.
Yeah. And I know famously the book we don't talk about, The 10,000 Doors of January.
I almost wrote that on my list.
Yeah, which was our audiobook choice, months ago. It was one of our first ones. We both tried to listen to that on audiobook and just could not do it, could we?
No.
And I wonder whether we'd have had more success trying to read it because it's third person than we did. Because the narrator was fine. The narrator was great.
I just couldn't get my head round.
There was too much going on for me, and I couldn't I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
That's what I was going to say. Like, there are audiobooks that I've started and I've got so far and I'm thinking, no, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And then I've flicked back to a different edition and tried reading it.
Yeah.
And I've really, really enjoyed it.
And the same the other way. I was just going to say, actually, I tried to listen to Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. Hated it.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated it because I just couldn't get into it. But I read the book and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. It's one of my favourite books. It's one of my favourite series. And the same the other way around. So TJ Klune, who I've talked about countless times, has got a series called the Green Creek series. It's brilliant. Now, I first tried to read the first book in that series, Wolf Song, on paperback, and I really struggled to get into it. So then I listened to the audiobook and just devoured it.
Yeah.
Because the narrator, Kurt Graves, really just captures the essence of the main character arcs. And it's just... You just feel immediately like there's a connection.
Yeah.
Like they're there and they are talking to you and you've got this perspective. And I didn't get there at all with the paperback and I just couldn't read it. And that's nothing wrong with TJ Klune's book, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's still his book that I was listening to. You know, and he's a fantastic author. I love it. I love his work. It was just me. I preferred the audio version.
Yeah.
So, you know, it does happen. So let's have a talk about who are some of your favourite narrators. And I know who you're going to say first.
Favourite has got to be Michael Leslie, hands down.
Yeah. Michael Leslie is fantastic. He manages to do... wet your pants hilarious.
Yeah. But
with
also,
heart-wrenchingly... emotional, just rip out your heart and make you cry.
Yeah.
There's so many times where he has made me laugh so loud I've woken everyone up and then I've been sobbing 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
And I've read, I first discovered him with TJ Klune's books. And then it was A Villain for Christmas by Alice Morton. No.
Alice Winters.
Alice Winters, that's the one. And that was amazing too.
Yeah.
And I haven't yet discovered anything that he's done that I haven't liked.
No, I haven't.
No, he's definitely a narrator to watch.
Like, there are times...
to listen to, rather. Sorry.
Just watch him talk. There are times where I've specifically, typed Michael Leslie in to bring up suggestions for books on Audible, rather than searching for a book title itself.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I mean, searching by narrator is another great way to find books if you do like a specific narrator. I know our dad does that because he really likes...
Stephen Fry,
but also, who's the one who does all the Terry Pratchett books? I've completely forgotten his name. Oh, I hope he doesn't listen to this because he'll shout at us. I can't remember his name. If anybody knows the narrator who does the Terry Pratchett books, I have completely blanked. And I don't know. I can't recall at all. But yeah, he loves his narration and searches for books that he's read all the time. And like you said, Stephen Fry, another great example of a fantastic narrator. One for me, and I've only read... It's actually my favourite audiobook. And I've mentioned it before several times. And it's A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. And I read the book first and I really enjoyed the book. I loved it, in fact. And then I listened to the audiobook and it was just a surreal experience.
Yeah.
Because it's narrated by Christian Coulson, who plays Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter when he's young. So in the Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
And he's now 42 or something, which I found out the other day, which made me feel ancient. I honestly felt so old. But yeah, and he narrates it. And he is Monty. He is the character to a T. Perfectly. Couldn't, even if they made it into a movie, I'd still want him to do the voice because it's so utterly perfect. And it is probably my most listened to audiobook because I just listen to it on repeat.
Yeah, I really do. It's
such a comfort to me because nothing. I mean, the book does deal with difficult themes. It deals with, abuse, parental abuse, physical abuse, homophobia, racism, disability, stigma against disability. It deals with a hell of a lot. But the book itself is so light-hearted and fun and sweet that it's just such a comfort read for me, and it instantly puts me in a good mood. If I can't sleep, I just put it on straight away.
Yeah.
And it just settles me down completely. It's just definitely a favourite. It really is.
Oh,
really good one.
Good.
I'm trying to think who else. I've already mentioned Kurt Graves, who does some TJ Klune stuff as well.
I really like, oh, mind you didn't listen to it, did you? The Library of the Unwritten?
No, I didn't listen to it. I read
half
that.
Read.
Yeah.
And the narrator, what was her name? Lisa Hannigan.
Okay.
Flanagan.
Lisa Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay.
Apologies, it's either Flanagan or Hannigan.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I thought she was brilliant.
Yeah. I didn't listen to that. I did read that. I'm going to mention another TJ Klune book because I'm a fangirl. And it was Bear, Otter and the Kid by TJ Klune. Now that was, again, a different narrator. That was Sean Crisden. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he did an amazing job. I don't know if I've ever cried so much listening to an audio because I did that one. It was so emotional. It was really, really good. Really, really good. And we've already mentioned A Villain for Christmas, which was just funny.
Yeah.
Really funny. But again, touching. Lots of touching moments. And another one for me, I think I asked you about favourite narrators, but we're kind of covering both narrators and audiobooks. I don't really think it's easy to separate them, is it?
No, it's not. I think because, it's not.
They go hand in hand, don't they? If it's a good audiobook, obviously it's a good narrator. So, another one for me was Oz by Lily Morton, which is an MM romance. And, oh my gosh, Joel Leslie, who did the narration, did the most perfect Irish accent I've ever heard in my life. And my thoughts were an Irish accent for about a week whilst listening to that, because his voice was just stuck in my head constantly. And he just brought the character to life again. Just really did bring him to life and made me laugh and made me feel, emotional and all this stuff. And it was just really good. I think one more was Openly Straight by Bill Konigsberg, which is a queer YA. And Pete Cross did the narration for that. And again, just so immersive, just really sucked you into the story and just made you just feel like the characters were so real.
Yeah.
And it was just something with those particular books that I didn't get from the paperbacks.
Yeah.
Or the eBooks or whatever. I think they just added such a new dimension to the book. Yeah, it was so good. But there's so many audiobooks I want to try. I just feel like I never have time for them.
Yeah, see, I don't anymore because, it used to be in a position where I could listen to it all day at work.
Yeah.
Whereas now I can't.
No, because you're in charge now and you have to you've got more responsibility.
I have to associate with people and communicate.
Yeah, which is readers we don't like to do unless it's about talking about books.
Yeah.
I can't read at work because I do a lot of writing for work, I end up just writing out the words I'm listening to. So it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. So for that I don't listen as much as I used to, but I have listened to quite a lot.
Yeah. It's funny actually, I listened to a sample the other day of Infinity Son by Adam Silvera because his the sequel to that, Infinity Reaper, has come out recently. And I do actually really want to listen to that. I can't remember whether that's first person or third, but when I was listening to the sample I was really interested because I used to, this is going to sound really prejudiced and really horrible, but I used to not enjoy listening to American narrators. And I don't know why, and I think that was a misassociation. I think everything I was listening to that had an American narrator was third person.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my problem was, because I tried listening to Caraval, which had an American narrator, and that's third person, and Nevernight, which had an American narrator, and that's third person. And I think that's where I was getting wrong. I don't think it was the narrator or the accent of the narrator. I think it was genuinely that it was third person, but it did take me a while to read that. So for ages I was like, oh no, I don't like American narrators, and I can't listen to them, which was obviously horrible. And I think it took me a while to figure out that no, it's just I don't like third person very much. But yeah, audiobooks for the win. Yes. Anything else you wanted to mention about them? Are there any that you want to read? Any that are on your radar?
Mate, there's loads on my radar.
Okay, go on then.
But what was I going to say before? Oh, it's gone.
Her head's blank.
You've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
Oh yeah, something else that I do like about Audible is when you find a narrator that actually does the accents.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, I like it.
Yeah.
Not all of them do.
No.
And I think as a whole, like, you connect with it better.
Because I suppose one thing we should say is even though we like first person the most, obviously within those first person stories there are still other characters that the narrator is doing the voice of.
Yeah.
So, to go back to TJ Klune, for example, the Lightning Struck Heart series, he does the voice of Sam, who's the hero. And then he does the voice of Gary, who is so over the top and just awesome and funny and really, really crude.
Yeah.
But he brings him to life so well. And it's the same with, obviously, Annie. Like I said, I love Christian Coulson and the way he does the voice for Monty in A Gentleman's Guide. But at the same time, he does the voice for Percy and for Felicity and for Monty's dad. And even though it's this one person speaking, they all sound like completely different people. He is a man, but when he does the voice of a woman, I am picturing in my head a woman.
Yeah.
And it's so good how they do it and so clever. I never stop to think, oh, that's not a woman, that's a man reading a woman's part.
Yeah.
It never crosses my mind.
No.
They're so good at it. It's always, yes, that is that character, and it just flashes it out completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They are exceptional. When you do get a good narrator, it's very lucky.
I just find it just brings it to life.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I do love reading, and I do love, like I said, imagining things my way and getting the voice in my head telling the story. But there is something very special about audiobooks. It's like having your own private movie, but like just a connection. In your head.
Yeah. There's quite a few, just going back to what you were on about before, there's quite a few that I've got on my list, but
that you want to read.
There's quite a few that I've got the book for, like the
audiobook or the paperback that you want. Oh, okay, right.
I do tend to do that for some reason. Like, I'll buy it on each platform.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to listen to audiobooks whilst reading the paperback.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I don't know why I used to do it. I think maybe it helped me concentrate at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't do it anymore.
I tend to buy it on each platform just for... So say I'm at a point where I'm listening to my audiobook. Yeah. But then, I don't know.
Oh, like if you can't listen to it anymore
and I'm at work but I'm on my lunch break, then I've got it on my Kindle app on my phone.
Makes sense.
Or I come home and I can sit there with my book and do you know what I mean? I don't know, I like flicking between all the different platforms.
Yeah, I can't do that. I genuinely can't do that. No, because if I'm listening to it, it has to continue as that voice in my head.
Oh no, I can switch. I do.
I can't. That's weird. I can't do that. That's a skill that I have not mastered. I can't do that at all.
Yeah, I quite like it.
Yeah, because I know if you get an ebook, you can get like the audiobook much cheaper because it's Whisper Sync, isn't it?
$3.49 or something.
Yeah, it's a few pound instead of like 20 quid, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is quite a lot cheaper, and I have done that before. But I've sort of switched exclusively to one or the other, even when I have done it.
Yeah,
I can't do that. I'm gonna have to try that again because I haven't done that. I can't do it.
I've done it with most of mine. Yeah, most of them.
I'm actually re-listening to the Gentleman's Guide again. I don't know why I do. I just have it on repeat. But yeah, I do want to listen to Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera, but I don't have any others at the moment that I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
I'm sure I will.
I've got one that's been on my list for quite a while. A Throne of Swans.
You've mentioned that a few times.
Catherine Core and Elizabeth Core.
Okay.
Or Catherine Core. Yeah. I can't remember what it's about.
Yeah, there's books that have been on my TBR for so long. Yeah.
I've got a feeling it's about
swans and thrones.
But shape-shifting. Where...
okay. Somebody asked this question the other day. They were like, on book Twitter, it was like, oh, if you could have any magical... Or if you could be any magical being, what would you be? Like a mermaid, a vampire, werewolf, or shapeshifter? I was like, shapeshifter, obviously. Then you can be anything. Like you could be a vampire and a werewolf and a mermaid if you're a shapeshifter, and you could also be a bird and you could fly or a dragon. I'd definitely be a shapeshifter.
I'd be a dragon.
Just a dragon, or would you be a shapeshifter, or you'd just permanently be stuck as a dragon?
No, I'd be a shapeshifter.
Yeah, I just think that's the coolest superpower. Don't you think you could be anything? Like, because what's the point? Like, some people would say, oh no, I'd rather have invisibility. Why? You could turn yourself into a fly and then you're practically invisible anyway.
Yeah, but then you could get squished.
Fine, then a mote of dust. Dust mote. Nobody can squish dust.
No, but you could get sucked up somebody's nose.
Ew, gross. That was disgusting.
I know, sorry. I think about these things.
There you go, folks. An insight into Sophie's brain. She thinks about dust motes.
When I'm not listening to Audible. What would happen to me if I was dust? Yeah, so there's that one. I'm trying to think what other ones I've got.
That's okay, don't worry. Let's move on, shall we? Let's talk about our book club book.
Yes.
Which you finished yesterday.
Yes.
Pushing it to the...
fine.
Yeah. Taking it to the limit. And I finished mine a while ago because we did a buddy read. Well, we were supposed to. We were supposed to do a buddy read, and I finished it in the allotted time and you did not.
Well, technically I did.
Did you?
Did we have a deadline?
I think we were supposed to just roughly finish it within the week that we decided to read it.
Well, you didn't wait for me, so that's on you.
Yes, it's my fault for it taking you 3 weeks longer than we originally planned. No, I'm joking. Don't worry about it. Yes, so sorry, we read A Pho Love Story by Lonely. And for anybody who listened last time, I apologise that I did completely butcher the pronunciation of the names. I Googled them afterwards and was really ashamed of myself. So I apologise to anybody who just, laughed at me. Yeah.
I think that's kind of our signature, isn't it?
That we can't pronounce anything. Literally anything.
Yeah.
I'm probably saying lonely wrong, to be fair, which is the name of the author of the book. Probably. I don't know. I can't pronounce anything at all. Even in the book itself, where they tell you how to pronounce the dish, pho, which I'm assuming is pho because it's Pho Love Story, didn't sound like that's how it was pronounced, and now I'm really confused. So I give up. I do give up. But yeah, so we read that, and I don't know about you, but I really, really enjoyed it.
I did really enjoy it. It was something very different for me because I don't normally read romance.
Yeah, so it was a contemporary YA rom-com.
Yeah.
It didn't feel heavily romance to me. Like, it wasn't like a romance novel.
No.
It wasn't all like, heaving chests and pressing bosoms. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm a romance lover. That's fine. But obviously, they were like 16, so no. Although, not saying again that 16-year-olds don't do that kind of thing, because they do. No comments from me. I'm just going to shut up now. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very character-driven.
Yeah.
There wasn't a great deal of plot, but there was enough plot to keep the pace moving.
Mm-hmm. And
there was enough mystery
as well.
Yeah. And I figured it out not early on.
See, I didn't, to be fair.
Did you not?
No,
it was probably somewhere midway to like the last third.
Yeah, I'd say the last quarter of the book I probably was like,
Yeah. So like I said, there was plot there, obviously, and the pace was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me it was just the characters.
Yeah.
Bao was my favourite. He was so cute and charming and just funny.
Yeah, he was
and made
my
me
favourite
laugh.
too.
Yeah, he really was. But Lynn as well, she was really nice, and I related to them in a way, because even though we don't have the same kinds of family dynamic, I still get that universal pressure from parents.
Yeah.
And that was very relatable.
The expectations of when you leave school you must do this.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't a viable career path, but this is, and we want what's best for you, so we're going to sort of lay down the law. That was very relatable, even for a 30-year-old. It reminded me a lot of my own childhood. But yeah, it was relatable, and it was interesting. Like I said, the culture was very interesting. The food made me just want to go out and eat all of the Vietnamese food I could find. It also made me want to visit the places.
Yeah.
So it was immersive, and I did really enjoy it. That's the thing. It's hard for me. I'm trying to summarise it in a way, but all I can think of is I did enjoy it.
Yeah. I can't say that there's anything that I didn't like about it.
No, there was nothing at all. I did like everything. I thought, the characters were really well developed. I thought at the beginning, obviously, the flaws were really obvious of the characters, and they did grow throughout the book. They didn't stay the same. They did grow and change. Yeah. There were different obstacles and things that they overcame. Like I said, the family mystery and stuff around the feud was revealed.
It was a bit Romeo and Juliet thing.
For a while.
I quite like that was referenced as well.
Yeah. I get what you mean. That's the thing, it was really good, and I don't just want to keep saying it was really good.
Yeah.
But it was. So I'm not sure what else to say.
Sometimes you just have to accept that it was really good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. If you haven't read it yet, you should.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Lynn, who is the heroine of the story, you know, she... for me, it was very strange, actually, because she's a painter, and all she did was paint. All I've done since listening to that, reading that book is draw. And I am not an artist in any sense of the word. I have no artistic ability at all. But all I've done is draw, because it just made me want to.
Yeah, I mean...
And write, because of Bauer's perspective, but it made me want to write as well.
Right.
Yeah. You're very good at art. You're selling yourself short there. You are very, very artistic.
But I haven't done it for ages. But then, for me, the way that she was describing what it's like when she paints.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I get that.
Yeah.
And ever since I'm like, I should get my brushes and my paints and my canvases and everything from up the loft. And
yeah. See, with me, I understood more... Bauer's perspective with his writing was much more relatable for me.
Yeah.
Because I do write a lot. And... you know, that really struck a chord with me. It resonated quite a lot. But like I said, at the same time, it did make me want to draw. It did make me want to be artistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was like all the characters were very well developed as well. Even the characters who you'd think of as secondary characters, the background characters, they were all very unique.
Yeah.
And stood out in their own ways. So even though they weren't the focus of the story and didn't have main storylines, they were all very good. So like Lynn's best friend who works at the newspaper, she was a great character.
Yeah.
You know, Bauer's best friend, another great character. The parents, the auntie, they all worked really well.
Yeah.
And I do think it all sort of fleshed out and came to life. The chef who works at one of the restaurants that they visit was great. I just think... I do think it was a very character-driven book, but that the characters were particularly good.
Yeah. Everything fit nicely.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. And so, like I said, there wasn't a great deal of plot there, but there was enough to keep it moving, whilst the characters were the driving force.
Yeah.
And they were what kept you sort of engaged and moving through it. So it was really good, and like I said, it was so cute.
It was.
It was really, really cute, and I do think, you know, it was just one of those really nice... There were moments of tension, but it was one of those nice, light-hearted reads, even though there was tension. But another thing, though, I mean, when I say tension, there were some quite harrowing details from the pasts of the parents. You know, so it did touch quite heavily on immigration and the experiences of the parents and how, you know, what drove them to leave Vietnam.
Yeah.
And, you know, why they did it and what their experience was. That shares a similar theme, actually, to Paris by Starlight, which is what the book I mentioned earlier, which is all about refugees.
Yeah.
And it just sheds this light that you don't really think about. Showing my privilege there, you know, it's not something we generally think about. And it was just very enlightening.
Yeah.
And moving. And I do think that was a very important aspect to the book. I do think that sort of, you know, it had a lot of depth to what could have been just, you know, not that there's anything wrong with it, but just could have just been a teenage love story.
Yeah.
There was a lot of depth added through the parents.
And that's the thing, and throughout the book you constantly, you want to know what's happened.
Yeah, you do. So like I said, even though there's not a great deal there, there's enough to keep you questioning and, like I said, to keep things moving. So it was very good. And again, we haven't got the review up yet on the blog, but it will be up shortly. So you can check that out at myendlessshelf.weebly.com. And we'll be having a Twitter chat as well tomorrow, the 17th of March at 7 p.m. UK time. So come and join us. That'll be #TTP Book Chat on Twitter, 7 p.m. UK time tomorrow, Wednesday the 17th of March. If you can't make it, we always do a recap of the chat on the blog for you to check out. And we have decided to stick with the Twitter chat for now. And we probably will be doing, because I did a poll and people did say that they liked the Twitter chat idea. So, but we're also thinking of hosting a buddy read this month on Bookship, which is the app we've been testing. We did a buddy read for a Pho Love Story last month and it was really fun. Bookship's a really cool little app. We can have sort of a private little book club room where we can all chat. You can tag spoilers, you can share photos of the book, you can, you know, have a great time that way. So if you'd like to join us, just drop us an email at myendlessshelf@gmail.com and we'll let you know how to join the group and what app you need to download and everything you need to know. So just drop us an email. So for this, sorry, I should say actually for this month's book, which is another relatively new book, which is Law by Alexandra Bracken, which released really recently. I think it was last month or January. January, I think. Yeah, and this is a modern day Greek mythology inspired book. Say inspired, it has the Greek gods in it. And it's pegged as having like a Hunger Games kind of vibe to it, which I'm interested in but also cautious of. Yeah. Because I'm on the fence with Hunger Games. And always have been. I like it, and then at the same time there's things I don't like about it. So I'm hoping it's good. I've heard a lot of good things about Law. People have said it's really good. But it's set in I won't bore you with the full synopsis this time, because I read that last time, butchered all of the pronunciations. But yeah, it's set in New York, I think modern day, and centres around a war between the Greek gods and goddesses who have been turned mortal as penance for something that they've done, and they get turned mortal every so many 100 or 1,000 years or wherever, something like that. And then mortals from ancient bloodlines who they had this war with then have the chance to kill the gods and sort of take their immortal power. So I think it centres around the main character whose name is Law, and she then has to help, I think, was it Athena? I think it said that Athena lands on her doorstep injured or something and she has to help, but one of her relations or something was killed by a god, so there's a bit of tension or something. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Like I said, I've heard really good things, so I have my fingers crossed. I'm just a little bit cautious about the Hunger Games kind of vibe. Oh, one thing I forgot to ask you, which I normally do a lot earlier, is what books you're looking forward to reading this month, if any, other than Law.
Law. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yes.
I'm also looking forward to reading The Hazelwood.
Yes, you've mentioned that one.
I don't have my other planner with me.
That's okay. I'm really looking forward to reading, I've already mentioned Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera, but I have an e-arc from NetGalley of Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas, which sounds really cool. It sounds like a really creepy, magical fairy tale kind of thing. Yeah. And I've heard nothing but good things about that. And truthfully, I kind of just fell in love with the cover, and even though I haven't got the physical book and I've just got an arc, I was still like, oh, the cover's pretty, I'll have that. So that, I'm really excited to read that. I think I'm going to start that today. And Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, because the TV series is coming onto Netflix in April. And I've read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, which apparently tie in, but I think a lot of the main plot is based on the Shadow and Bone series, which I still haven't read, so I'm going to try my hardest to read those as well.
That one's on my list as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and do that before April, which we don't have much time.
No.
But yeah, so if you do want to join us for our next book chat, grab a copy of Law by Alexandra Bracken. We'll be back on Tuesday the 13th of April to talk about that with our next episode, which is going to be all about, in honour of April Fool's Day, is going to be all about the books that make us laugh. So it's going to be all about humour, comedy, and just things that we enjoy having a good old giggle too. And like I said, our Twitter book chat is on the 17th of March at 7pm UK time, and that's hashtag TTP book chat. If you want to join our buddy read, send us an email at myendlessshelf@gmail.com, and if you want any of the reviews, go to myendlessshelf.weebly.com. We're also on Twitter at myendlessshelf and Instagram under the same handle at myendlessshelf. Thank you very much for listening. See you next one. Bye bye.